give a few minutes for the rest of our guests to join on YouTube Live or via Zoom. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sueda Palat. I've been a participant at the Wonderful Commission on the Status of Women for a few years now, and I'll be moderating the panel today. If you have any questions, please send them directly to me via the chat, and we'll spare some time for a Q&A session at the end. So the purpose of our panel today is to briefly explore the conditions immigrant and refugee women experience as they look for work, and some of the barriers they have to overcome in the process. We'll be looking at labor in Saudi Arabia and then more specifically in the United States. So our first speaker is Hubei Polat. He's a high school senior who spent his time outside of school in various community programs as a student mentor and leader. He's interested in exploring underrepresented issues. After graduation, he hopes to pursue a psychology degree to better understand people, and he enjoys soccer and hanging out with his cat in his free time. Hubei, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And as she said, my name is Hubei, and I'm really glad to be with everybody here today. Okay. So the topic I wanted to discuss is the kafala system in Saudi Arabia. Okay. It was Noor Miyadi's third time migrating for work. Her previous employers had paid her full salary and treated her well. However, her third time turned out to be far different than the first two. She was denied her salary and was enduring abuse from her employer. Essentially, she was undergoing modern-day slavery in Saudi Arabia. She is one of the many victims of the kafala system, alternatively known as the sponsorship system. The kafala system is the legal framework used in most Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, that establishes a relationship between a sponsor, known as the employer, and a migrant worker. According to the Human Rights Watch, this system allows for the sponsor to have an owner-like control of the migrant worker who they hire. For example, it grants the employer the right to permit whether a migrant worker can enter Saudi Arabia and decide if the worker can exit the country, even if abuse is present. Until recently, the system also did not allow migrant workers to switch jobs without the sponsor's permission. One study on interviews with migrant women found that 80% of participants from Indonesia stated that they were not allowed to leave their contract. New labor reforms have changed that, but abuse is still rampant. Despite the fact that slavery has been condemned by many international organizations and documents, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the kafala system essentially recreates modern-day slavery through the use of legal enforcement and contracts. For example, the Human Rights Watch has documented several cases where migrant workers have faced abusive conditions, but were still not allowed to leave the country even when their contract ended because their employer denied permission. In the case of Noor Miyadi, her employer even took away her passport and denied her the right to leave her job because her contract was not yet over. At its core, kafala not only controls the prospects of a migrant worker, but exploits their labor in ways that are unprotected by their host country. In Saudi Arabia, where Miyadi was employed, slavery was abolished very late in comparison to the rest of the globe. While a royal decree issued by King Faisal declared slavery illegal, the practice continues through economic systems such as kafala. Employees now use contracts as a means to legitimize and disguise the practice. In comparison to other forms of slavery, the involuntary servitude of migrant domestic workers is difficult to eradicate because it is so deeply embedded in the global markets of the labor sending and receiving countries. Migration, being a significant part of Saudi Arabia's thriving economy, attracts large numbers of foreign workers from many countries throughout Asia and the Arab world. The women who migrate to the UAE and Saudi Arabia do so voluntarily, although they are misinformed about what is waiting for them there. In these countries, immigrant women are typically employed as domestic workers who live with their sponsors and are responsible for cleaning, cooking, childcare, and caring for the elderly. In exchange, they get food, lodging, and money. Many women who cannot access education or well-paying jobs in their home countries enter into this contract in hopes of supporting their families. Unfortunately, survival itself becomes the greatest hurdle, and thoughts of visiting family and sending back wages become fantasies. Many women who become domestic servants are not only misinformed of what they're getting into, but also unaware of what little rights they do have. According to researcher Romina Halabi, some women expect to be paid $800 a month, but instead find their pay to be $100, if that. Domestic workers are not only overworked and underpaid, but they also face assault ranging from physical violence to sexual abuse. Although domestic workers are living in the same home as their employers, many are not given adequate rooms or sufficient food, depending on the will of their employer. Some are locked in their rooms with only a mattress to prevent escape. Being placed under the direct control of one's employer easily creates an environment suitable to abuse. Mina S., an Indonesian domestic worker in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, recounted her day-to-day life and talked about how she was beaten with an electric cable from 12 to 2:30 a.m. She was given two choices by her employer: to die in the workplace or work without a salary. If she died, then the employer would tell the police she committed suicide. Luckily, Mina was able to escape through a ventilation hole in the bathroom. Nur Miyari, the domestic worker in Saudi Arabia who had migrated from Indonesia, had a similar story. She was never able to fully rest. She was expected to wake up at 4 a.m. And would sleep at 3. You can imagine the physical and psychological toll this takes on one's body. She was beaten when she couldn't do the work and was never allowed to leave the house, even to throw out the trash. She was later sent to the hospital due to her terrible physical state, ultimately having to undergo intensive medical treatment, including the amputation of her fingers. The situations contract laborers face in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries are contrary to our basic human rights. Although the UN's Declaration of Human Rights is a non-binding document, it is important in that it serves as a roadmap for the goals nations should be striving towards. In Articles 4 and 5, the UN says, "No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave shall be prohibited in all of their forms, and no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." The basic values these articles enshrine are equity, dignity, and respect for all. When these values are protected and people are informed of them, they are empowered to seek the protection of their rights. The reality is that female domestic workers are almost entirely unaware of this and are at the mercy of their sponsors. For example, in a 2008 interview, a Filipina domestic worker in Riyadh said this about her employers: "Really, they are good to me. If I say I need rest, they give me rest." But when she was asked what she would do or where she would go if she was being mistreated, she said, "Madam, I cannot go anywhere. I'm not allowed to go outside. I cannot go to the embassy. I will just cry in my room and pray." It's important here to mention the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, since it affected labor and the economy globally. Like other low-wage workers, the domestic workers in Saudi Arabia also suffered from the pandemic. Approximately 7,000 women were hired as domestics for Saudi Arabian families in the year 2020. While they were technically employed, families didn't want the women because of the possibility that they would carry the ongoing virus. Due to the economic crisis caused by the shutdowns, some employers deprived their workers of wages, saying that the domestics weren't always working. In 2020, this happened to 9 African domestic workers. The households that had hired them no longer wanted them, and so the agency that had recruited them locked these women up in a bare room with a few thin mattresses. At the time of the news report in November 2020, some of these women had been in the room since March. In July, one was 6 months pregnant and had no access to prenatal care. Another was chained to a wall when she tore off her clothes during a mental breakdown. As the COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing and doesn't look like it will end anytime soon, there needs to be more monitoring of the situation for domestic workers. Okay. Without international pressure, the exploitation of migrant domestics is certain to persist. Countries such as the Philippines, with growing populations and economic instability, continue to send female domestic workers abroad because of the economic benefit, despite there being some understanding that the sponsorship system is essentially a contemporary form of slavery. For these countries, sending workers abroad reduces the number of the unemployed and lowers the danger of social dissatisfaction. This is where the realization of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals become incredibly relevant. If goal number 4, the provision of quality education to both genders, and goal number 5, decent and productive work for all are realized, then women's reliance on abusive domestic work contracts could decrease. A lot of blame also rests with Saudi Arabia. The country wants to give the appearance of making landmark reforms on women's rights, when in reality, it systematically persecutes and oppresses women who raise their voice. Contractual enslavement is perhaps best understood as a form of precarious work resulting from poverty. At the crosshairs, as always, we find that women are more vulnerable to exploitation. Thus, the eradication of contractual enslavement is not only relevant to the achievement of gender equity, but also deeply connected to the eradication of global poverty.
Thank you very much. If you could stop sharing your screen. Thank you, Mr. Polat. Next, we will be hearing from Ms. Zeynep Özdemir. In the past, she's participated in the UNCSW panels based on her interest in women's issues generally. Her participation has increased her understanding of global problems and motivates her to consider long-lasting solutions to them as well. In her free time, she also enjoys photography, word puzzles, and learning new languages. Zeynep, you can share your screen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. My name is Zeynep Özdemir, and today I'm here to talk about the variety of obstacles immigrant and refugee women face after relocating into the United States, and just how these obstacles impede their economic vitality and their entrance into the labor force. So Barwin Aybesh, a Syrian refugee woman who we interviewed for this panel, notably said, "I feel like a strong woman because I opened my own business." For Barwin, starting her own catering business was not only allowed her to care for her 5 kids at home, but it also made her feel confident and proud as an independent woman. Of course, women entering the workforce is an important marker for gender equality, but beyond that, it also works to increase their financial stability and self-esteem. Unfortunately, a report by the International Labour Organization examined 49 countries that host half the world's migrant workers and found that migrants were earning nearly 13% less on average. In the United States, only 40% of refugee women are employed compared to a much higher percentage, 59% of native-born US women. Evidently, there is a discrepancy in female employment based on their legal status, and this is due to a myriad of challenges encountered by refugee and migrant women that hinder their participation in the workforce and limit their access to higher quality employment. And as an Atlantan, the Clarkston community, which Barwin is currently a part of, was particularly interesting to me. Clarkston is a city in DeKalb County of Georgia, which has become home to more than 60,000 refugees since the 1970s. In fact, the community faces such an influx of migrants that it has come to be known as the Ellis Island of the South. Clarkston's proximity to Atlanta's job market is a big pull factor for incoming refugees and other immigrants. As home to a diverse demographic of immigrants, the local government alongside the community in Clarkston work together to combat these struggles of adapting to a new country by providing various services. For example, the Amani Women's Center provides job training to refugee women, and Somali American Community Center organizes classes for preparation for the US citizenship exam. Such programs help prepare new residents to enter the workforce. One of the obstacles to full participation of women in the labor force is the lack of adequate access to healthcare. Now, I think this is a point that often goes unrecognized since it doesn't seem to be immediately related to work, but the reality is that without appropriate healthcare, women's access to work is impeded. But prior to relocation to the United States, refugees spend some time in refugee camps where they might attract acute and chronic diseases such as tuberculosis, intestinal parasites, and nutritional deficiencies. Many women, especially those from North Africa, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, face a higher risk to their health. While treatment is provided by healthcare personnel, most of the time their medical care is left incomplete, which can prolong symptoms and worsen diseases in the long term. In the absence of physical health, work becomes very difficult. Once in the States, refugees are also more likely to face financial difficulties, which further increase the likelihood of poor health. Leighton Koo, a researcher, has said that unresolved health problems can limit immigrants' ability to maintain productive employment, particularly given that many work in physically strenuous jobs or in jobs in which there's a high incidence of occupational injuries. To help this vulnerable group to integrate into the host country, it's important to provide long-term support to reduce the risk of both financial hardship and poor health. These refugees have 8 months to become economically stable before their cash assistance from the government ends and they become subject to standard requirements of Medicaid. And to get this Medicaid and CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program coverage, immigrants have to wait 5 years. The medical cost per immigrant family, including non-enrollees, was $2,796 compared to a much lower cost per native family. The greater cost imposed by immigrants is entirely predicted by their relatively low levels of education and relatively large families. U.S. residents with these characteristics are at a greater risk of relying on taxpayers to provide medical care to themselves, their dependents, or both. Most importantly, refugee women need access to mental health services. Relocation from one country to another is in itself a stressful thing, but this stress is compounded when the relocation is due to external factors such as war or political instability. Witnessing traumatic events or becoming separated from one's existing community poses a significant psychological burden that in some cases requires compassionate care and counseling services to overcome. And once women can overcome this hurdle, they can better divert their energies to learning the new language, enrolling in various programs, or even founding their own businesses. And whether they be refugees or just immigrants, many women entering this country with a multitude of identities. Muslim, woman, Arab, foreigner. These are just some examples, and this can cause them to come face to face with a variety of unique obstacles that can prevent them from entering the workforce. For example, they might face a sort of discrimination at the intersection of Islamophobia, racism, and sexism. In today's society, women are viewed as barriers of culture and values, often acting as the flag bearer of a whole set of beliefs or cultural values, whether they want to or not. This is why the unique intersectionality of Muslim refugee women is so significant. They're more at risk of harassment due to their racial and religious identity than men may be. This might be because stigmatized identity markers such as the hijab are unique to Muslim women. There are plenty of studies that support this idea. For example, the American Psychological Association reported that based on a 2009 study that 86.3% of Muslim women reported hate crimes in contrast to 54.9% of Muslim men. Other studies show that especially since 9/11, indicating a religious affiliation as Muslim decreases the callback rate for job applications. Unfortunately, such realities can cause a drop in self-esteem for Muslim women, and particularly for female Muslim refugees who have added to the cause of concern when applying for jobs. This creates a significant disadvantage for Muslim refugee or immigrant women, since many of these previous experiences that they might list on resumes are potentially community or identity-based activities, which can subject them to prejudice from employers. In this regard, the empowerment of Muslim women refugees or immigrants is essential in order to meet the Sustainable Development Goals of gender equality and decent work and economic growth. During our interview with Barwin Ibesh, who's the owner of a catering business called Aleppo kitchen, she consistently emphasized the importance of language and the availability of learning resources when entering America. Especially during her first few months in this country, she remarked that language was perhaps the largest barrier to her family as they handled their work and personal necessities. She specifically said to me, the only problem is the language. If anyone helped me with English for my website, I would be in a much better situation. Mrs. Barwin has a bachelor's degree in history and used to be a teacher. But since her degree was in Arabic, it wasn't economically viable for her here, though she did could have worked and had the necessary skills. Her inability to access quality language learning resources stopped her in her tracks. Local governments must make English language instruction more accessible to new migrants in the US and provide them with ample information of their potential career choices and resources to pursue them. An example of this study was already instituted in our area of study, Clarkston, where the community center assists more than 50,000 individuals in free English and citizenship classes. Many local communities like those in Clarkston have taken action by helping migrants build their CVs and apply for jobs. To make the work more empowering for Muslim women and refugee or immigrants, steps must be taken to dismantle the subtle biases that play a part in the employment process to provide ample resources to ensure safety in the workplace. And this could be steadily achieved by banning malicious dress code policies that prohibit women from wearing the hijab or other religious head coverings. All working refugees should be made aware of their rights in the workplace and easily accessible resources in case they experience discrimination. Employers should implement a strict zero tolerance policy towards discrimination. Local governments can also allocate funds to relevant nonprofits that aid female refugees and immigrants as they ease into the workforce. This would lead to a net benefit for all. Many educated women who might otherwise be relegated to the home outside of their individual choice can start contributing to the American economy. And similarly, households would benefit from higher incomes, which typically leads to better health and educational outcomes for members. Such programs would thus contribute to gender equality. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Zainab. And if you could stop sharing your screen. Thank you for your analysis on that issue. And for anybody who has joined later, you can direct your questions through the private chat to me as the co-host, and we'll have a Q&A session in the end. So next we'll hear from Mr. Muhammad Ali, who currently works as the operations manager at Athar USA, an organization that he'll be telling us more about today. Mr. Ali has a lot of experience working with resettlement agencies in Georgia, and he worked as a case manager and Arabic interpreter at Inspiritus in Savannah, Georgia. His passion for service has been his own form of activism. Born in Dubai and coming to the US for college, he enjoyed interacting with people of different cultures in the Middle East and here in the US. He is a lover of sports and particularly enjoys running. Welcome, Mr. Ali.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I just want to start by confirming what Hubayb said. Since I was born in Dubai, I confirm every word he said. I was raised by two housekeepers. One was from Philippines, one from Sri Lanka. It just kind of like refreshed my memory when you talked about how they struggle working in the Gulf area. You're absolutely right. There's one thing that one of them said on a phone call one time when she was calling back home, that she feels so lucky that she's not working for a local Emirati family and she's working for an Egyptian family because we treat her like one of us, which is not what she heard or seen from her other relatives who used to work in other Gulf countries like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. So good work right there. You said exactly what's going on. Now, to start with Ethar, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so Ethar is an organization that helps in generally the needy in Atlanta. It did not start that way. It started as Atlanta chapter of Syrian community. It only helped Syrian refugees in Atlanta metro area. But then in 2020, we did expand and we change the name to ITHAR, and we help anyone, not just Syrian refugees. So in very short term, we try to fulfill where other resettlement agencies fail to comply. One of the speakers before me said the welcome money or the cash that the government assigned for every family to start with in the United States is kind of limited. So that's when we come in, and even before the family arrives to the state, we coordinate with resettlement agencies to have a welcome list, which adds to the list of essential furniture. So for an example, resettlement agency is required to have a couch, a dining table that with enough chairs for every member in the family. When we get in, we get the microwaves, hand blenders, brand new pots, and it's like they feel like this is real home because the stuff is brand new. And even when they have like little requests, like some people request we need a pizza sheet, a round pizza sheet, or we want this, or we want that. We try to get that to them for them to feel like they're not like they're more than welcome here in the state. Mostly we help, I would say 90% of refugees, but we actually help more than refugees. We had a client that reached out to us 2 weeks ago, which he was a U.S. citizen, but he was struggling. He moved from Boston to Atlanta. He reached out to us, and we did the best we can help him. So we're not just limited to refugees. It's just because of the numbers that they arrived to Atlanta, we get a lot of help to them because they're like arriving in big numbers. This is the board member pictures. Mr. Ahmad Sabah is the president. Dr. Mona is the vice president. We have board members like Aska, Nadia, Nada, Osama, Amber, who is joining us in this meeting. And then we have the executive board of members, Imam Ashraf, Mr. Ahmed, Maisha, Ibrahim Awad, which he is a lawyer actually here in Atlanta, Omnia, Naispur, Shumaila, and Safiya. This is me. I'm the operation manager at ITHAR. In ITHAR, we have different programs that we can help the refugee or the needy in general with. I'll try to go through them very quick. Like I mentioned earlier, the main thing that we provide is the welcome home Amazon wish list. We have quite number of volunteers, so we have the wish list shared, and then every donor will come and buy either the whole list or some item on the list. This way we'll have it ready by the day the family arrives, or even before that. We also can have target list. All these are like mainly household items. This is a sample of the wish list. Like I said, a lot of these stuffs and resettlement agencies will not spend money on because it's so limited. So they'd rather have a portion towards a rent, towards couches. So they will not get them a TV. They will not get them certain things that we feel like when you first arrive to the States, you have a language barrier. You don't have permission to work it because you don't have Social Security and all that. Having a TV is something might not look big, but I've seen the impact on the families when they have a TV when they first arrive. Like I mentioned, pots and pans, microwave, all these items we get brand new. We even get coloring pencils and coloring books for the kids. We try to get matching bed sheet sets. If it's girls, we try to get some girly colors. Boys, we try to get boys colors. This is some statistics about 2021. So we have 57 wish lists have been provided. We do provide washer and dryers too, which is this things makes a whole huge difference in the family's life when they don't have to use the washer and dryer in the complex or the washer and dryer across the street. Having a washer and dryer in their home is a big thing. And we do provide it for every family if they need it or if they have a washer and dryer connection in their home. So these are pictures of volunteers helping setting up some of the houses. In the right corner, you can see a lady fixing a bed sheet. These are her kids. She brought her 6 years old and 9 years old, so they can really get into the idea of helping others, helping needy people who are not even in the States yet. This is Mr. Ahmed himself, the president of ITHAR, helping us set up in one of the houses. The lady in blue is Dr. Mona, the vice president. Can you see that? Can you see my cursor where I'm marking? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. These two gentlemen work for IRC, which we cooperate with. And this is an example of how apartment looks like after the setup. And this is the ITHAR welcome card. We like to leave it there just to let them know that we helped, in the future when we meet them, we tell them that if they need any more items, we might be able to provide that too. And this is an example for the washer and dryer that we get from Fred and his wife. This is Fred delivering a washer and dryer, and these are them after installing them in the apartment. Testimonial, how people contact us to thank us for what we did. Now, another program we work with is education and workshops. We have a newborn wish list that we start doing in ITHAR, but in order for you to receive that, you have to pass a questionnaire. Like it's like a small reading pamphlet that you have to read and study, and then there will be a 12 question. If the parents pass by 90%, then we will provide a wish list for the newborn upcoming baby. And if they don't, we keep asking them to reread it, retaking the test. We just want to make sure that they're familiar with how to deal with the baby, with the car seat, and so many other different things that normally in the Middle East, people don't consider this as a necessity. They're like gonna take care of the kid by nature, but this is one thing that we feel like it makes a whole lot of difference when they care for a newborn. We cooperate with ICNA Relief. We did some COVID education and vaccine earlier last year. and this is a sample of the newborn baby wish list that we deliver. Now, this is what a lot of people start knowing ITHAR for. We have a Women Behind the Wheel program. This is really a budget factor in any refugee family. Having a driver license could directly impact on their financial situation. It's called Women Behind the Wheel, but we extended it to one member, any member in families that needs to get a driver license. We will have them have 14 practical driving classes, which is way more than enough. Like I've seen a lot of people pass the test after the 6th or the 7th hour. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the woman in the family. It used to be, but if the father wants to, if an older son who's going to have a job and he needs a driver license, we will register one member in that family for free to help getting their driver license. We're cooperating with a nice lady called Nancy. She's from Egypt to give them the classes. She's a great instructor. And like I said, it's really very important for the family to get a driver license, not just for the women. It helps them even if they're trying to get to school to study English, if they're trying to get the services for their kids. The father is busy at work, the mom needs to take the kids for shots or medical appointments. So it's kind of like flexible when the mom has a driver license. And it helps also when they try to get a job. It's a huge thing when someone who just arrived to the States can be able to drive. So far we helped 100 women to get the driver license. And this is not counting what we did in 22 already, but these are testimonials for people thanking us. Even if they don't speak English, they would try to send us something in Arabic. It touched my heart when I read things like that, because I knew when I first came to the state about 22 years ago, and I was struggling to get to college because I was not living on campus, and having that driver license was just a relief. So and I recall that when one of them get to succeed and get their driver license. So in general, what we do in ITHAR, we try to meet their immediate needs. Since I used to be a case manager and spiritist, formerly Lutheran Services Georgia, I know how limited is the housing list. I know that I have to have only one bowl, for an example, for salad. I don't have to have but more than five, let's say 5 spoons, 5 knives, 5 forks, because it's only 5 members in that family. We try to get more. We try to get them brand new stuff. When we do the home setup, I intentionally leave a lot of items in the box for the family to enjoy the moment of opening it and use it as the first user. This is some picture from Afghani families who have temporary housing. I know all of you probably know about the housing situation now in Atlanta. It's kind of hard. It's really hard to find an apartment for a new arrival. We have a lot of families that I know of that've been resettled in an Airbnb because they're in a waiting list to an apartment, but they don't even know when they will get that. So when we find a situation like that, we will get a list of items that's a little bit different from the welcome Amazon welcome list, but it really does help too, even if they're in a temporary housing. And this is a picture with the volunteers of trying to classify the donations and even making a little room for different sizes of shoes, just in case we can send the families the right sizes, depending on how many members and how old they are. I'm trying to make this short. I know I've been talking for a minute. This is another picture of us helping Duluth families. So we're not just dealing with families in Clarkston. And we have toy drives too. We try to get toys for kids. And I don't know if you guys can see Mr. Spider-Man here having a picture with the volunteers and giving away the gifts for one of the kids. Although we get hygiene products, one of the things that we noticed that a lot of a lot of money. Can you guys hear me clear?
Yes, right now.
Okay. So this is other community collaboration organization that we deal with. New American Path. This is just an example. New American Pathway, IRC, the Welcome Co-op, Catholic Charities, Spiritus, Refugee Women Network. The list is long. We try to cooperate with them in order to help the families in a better way. This is how we find out about the number of the family members. When are they arriving? What is the address so we can coordinate delivering the items before the family arrives. With Aleph Institute, a few months ago, we had a place called Refugee and me and the church, we're in neighborhood, we were cooking Palestinian dish. We had vegetarian one with me. I met a lot of people, and like I said, we cooperate with anyone who tried to help them in Atlanta. Aleph is one of them, Aleph Institute. This is Home Academy, which is a great place for.
I think we're having trouble with Mr. Ali's technical problems, but we'll get to what he was discussing in the Q&A. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Burcu Durmuş. She was born in Istanbul, Turkey, where she worked for 13 years at various institutions as a Turkish language and literature teacher. But due to political instability and the political purge in Turkey following the 2016 coup, Ms. Durmuş had to relocate to the United States, where she spent 2 years learning the language and adapting to her new environment. In her third year here, though, she changed careers to start an IT course. After receiving her certification, she was accepted at a software company as a designer and developer, and recently she was promoted in this job as well. Ms. Durmuş will talk about her experiences in making this transition and this relocation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. How is my voice?
Clear.
Okay, thank you. I am here today for the women who have left their home country just in one day. I am here today for the women who had lost their rights, their jobs in their home country just in one day. And I am here today for the women who rewrite their stories in the countries they migrated to. I'm just one of those millions of women. My story has started in September 2016. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. My story has started in September 2016. Before than that, on July 15, 2016, everything turned upside down in my home country. This was the day the good people became the bad people. The high school where I worked was closed, and my professional and my diploma and my rights were revoked. Before you experience something, you can say that this only happens in the movies. But once you experience that, after you realize the movies tell us about real life. I was just one of the hundreds of thousands of people who participated to the Gülen movement in my country. The main idea in Gülen's movement is that life only gets better when you share something that you have. For example, money, goods, knowledge, love, and whatever you have can only give you happiness as long as you share them with other people. In Gülen movement, another basic principle is to be truthful and to be honest. But we know that this feature is disliked by dictators all around the world, unfortunately. Our honesty to the dictators only corrupted our country more. Okay, let's go to September 2016. I came to that time to the United States, and then that time I came here with my boys. The older one was 9 years old, and the younger one was 7 years old. When we came here, it had been 1 week since the school year had started. We quickly applied them. Yeah, we quickly applied them to the public school. So my husband did not live here with us the first 7 months because of his job. He had to go somewhere, the other countries, and then he knew how to speak in English, but my children and I did not know anything. And then I was alone with my 2 boys, and I only knew 4 words in English: yes, no, hello, and thank you. That was it. One month after my children had started school, I went to pick them up one day, and my younger boy's teacher was waiting for me in the garden, school's garden. When I approached them, his teacher said hello and started talking very quickly and very fast. And she spoke so quickly that she looked like she was trying to explain something to me, of course, and about him, my son, but I couldn't understand anything and I couldn't say anything. After 2 or 3 minutes later, she took a pause, and I had my finger like this up and stopped her, and I wanted to call my friend. And I asked my friend, please, can you help me and talk to the teacher? She said, okay, I will. And then I gave my phone to the teacher. When the teacher gave the phone back to me, my friend told me that my son had an adapting problem in his school. And she said the principal and some teachers are gonna have a meeting tomorrow with you, and then I will come with you for the translation. I said, okay, and thank you, my friend. next day, we were at school at the given time. The principal and three teachers told me that your son does not attend classes because he doesn't speak English, and also he drew something during the his classes. And although he started to third grade here, but when we checked his year of birth, we saw that he was 1 year younger for third class in here. I mean, in the United States. For this reason, they told me that for this reason, we recommend you that he can redo second grade here. This will be better for your son, both in skills of new language and adaptation to the classes. After my friend translated to me, I said, okay. And I accepted. The important thing for me is that my son gets used to school as soon as possible and attends to his class as soon as possible too. And we thanked each other and we finished the meeting. After a whole week, I cried for the whole week. After that time, I had a challenge I had never faced in my life. It was very difficult for me not to understand his teachers and not to be able to talk to them. There was a shame. There was a shame for me because I am an educated people in my country. Why I asked why I did not try to learn in English before. I mean, in my country, why I did not. And then I was so angry about myself, and because I never made an effort to learn to speak in English before. I mean, as a second language. After that, the punishment I gave myself was get to talking and understanding my children's teachers as soon as possible too. And 1 year later, I attended my kids meeting, and I was sorry. Yeah, after 1 year later, I attended my kids meeting. I mean, at school, and then I could give them some short answers. I mean, to the teachers that time. After 2 years, I have started talking to them in long sentences. I could give them short sentences after 2 years. And then I forgot what I will say. Sorry about that. Now I want to tell something to all women who had left their country. I want to tell something that one of them. I mean, I want to give them two tips. I mean, to speak in new language. One of them is watch the movies and news, and because and also with the subtitle, it has to be same language and not to your main language. For example, I watch ABC News still, and with subtitles in English too. I still watch every day. Yeah, one of them was that. And also, secondly, repeat sentences, what you hear in the movies or news. Sometimes out loud, sometimes just repeat them in your mind. To do this, you don't need to change your place. I mean, your country. You can do it in your home country too. And maybe one day you will need that, and then you will use that. Now I'm a developer designer at a software company. I want to thank my bosses who gave me this opportunity 2 years ago, because in that time they trusted me because I wasn't I wasn't speaking in English well, like today I wasn't. But I never stopped. I never stopped to improve my English skills. Still, I am trying to do my best every day, and also I will never stop. And I want to tell you something. All around the world, all immigrant women who like me, let your first priority is to learn the language as soon as possible where you had to go. This is the best way for your children, and yeah, and for your future, and for your new life. Please think like this. I have to come here, I mean to the United States, and that day, here is my second country. I won the USA, and the USA won me too, right? If so, I must do something. I must do the best, whatever I can after this time, and for this country and myself too. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Durmuş, for sharing your story. It was really impactful. So I want to move on to some questions. And since you were the last speaker, we can start with you. You mentioned that your primary motivation for starting to learn English was not being able to understand what was going on at your son's school, but you had also been an educated woman before coming to the United States. If you had not had that transformative experience, do you think at some point in your new life in America, something would have pushed you to enter the workforce as you did, to learn the language as you did? Or without that transformative moment, this wouldn't have happened?
Yeah, actually, it happened. If I came here without my boys too, yeah, it was gonna be happen same story, because the important thing is for me to talk to someone. I mean, I'm a social person. That's why it happened. Yeah, it was gonna happen same thing if I came here without my kids, or I doubt about me, why I didn't try in my country too. Yeah, and that's the bad thing for me, because I knew all around the world can speak in English. Why I am not? Why I can't? I never asked that question before I came here.
Thank you very much.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, one other question. You mentioned that you started working around your third year after being in the United States.
Yeah.
Based on the time that you were not working, and based on maybe experiences that you might have with other friends of yours who are or are not working, how do you think your lived experience in America changed after being able to start a new career, after being able to enter the workforce?
Yeah, actually, it was hard because I love my job. I mean, to be teacher. That is my whole life. I can say that, just before, and of course my family. After that, that was my job. But when I came here, I just thought that I never can become as a teacher in the United States, because I never to be a native speaker in here, right? That's why I turned my situation, I mean, all around my mind, and then okay, I'm gonna start. I mean, different work opportunity. That first, I thought I can become a librarian, because you don't have to talk too much, and you don't have to be, I mean, native speaker. After that, one of my friends told me that let's do it first, because we can do it. I mean, we can work in a software company, and then we can do it if we finish the course, and then we can start from the beginning. I mean, our career. And then okay, I said okay, I'll try, and then I started to become I mean, IT developer and designer.
Thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
a question for Ms. Zainab Özdemir. You also mentioned the impact of being able to work on women, but does not being able to work once women immigrate or seek asylum here in some way disempower women?
Yeah, I agree, but because well, first of all, being in that kind of workspace, it creates a place for them to share their ideas, to feel incorporated. It gives them a voice. And especially in today's society, where even the most successful women who have started their own businesses, they still have to always search for ways to either prove themselves just because of their race or gender. And work is a mean of acquiring financial independence, and financial independence means that women are not tied to men outside the house or anyone else. And although I'm not implying that not working or staying home is a bad thing, but from women who want to and choose to work after coming into a country, we want them to have access to all the equipment and opportunities, and get rid of the barriers that impede their way to becoming financially independent.
Thank you very much. And a question for Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, you mentioned that you work with a lot of refugee families, and that you have your organization has specific programs for women as well. Based on the people that you see, the families that you see, do you see a lot of women wanting to join the labor force? And if they do, how do they go about that?
I can't really answer this because, like I said, we're not a resettlement agency. We help them when they first arrive. So down the road, when their skills get better, when they get familiarized with the society and the community, they normally don't call us for help. They don't reach for us, but that's a good thing, because that means they're more independent. They're having less trouble blending. They're really getting things on their own. So but like I said, it's a sign that either they're fully independent, or the help they get them in a point that they're less asking people for like things that they can do on their own.
Yes, thank you about that point regarding independence. And we have one last question for Mr. Hubeb regarding the kafala system in the Gulf countries. What can be done internationally to stop the practice if domestic laws aren't really changing?
So I believe that media attention and international monitoring systems are crucial to reducing the abuse. For example, there was a similar case of migrant workers that endured abuse during the construction of NYU's Abu Dhabi campus. The migrant workers were also employed under the kafala system. They had really long work days, like 11 hours, like horrible housing conditions and poverty wages. And only once the abuse became internationally known did NYU agree to monetary compensation? So in the case of domestic workers, I really believe that what's needed is international pressure and news media attention, since the lack of pressure just enables countries to commit such acts.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our guests, both on the Zoom meeting and on the YouTube Live. We appreciate your attendance. Thank you to all of our panelists who made the time to be here. That'll be all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thanks for having me. Thank you all. Bye-bye.